I want to engage with you. You weren't expecting me to sing at the beginning of this video. There's a reason I'm not a professional singer, but I am a professional keynote, and I got your attention, didn't I? You're still watching. Well, if you've clicked off, you're not seeing this anyway, but if you're still watching, listen, every single speech, talk has to have a hook. And that was my hook for this video, is to sing a random song about engagement. Now, not this kind of engagement, I'm talking about engaging your audience. I want to give you 3 ideas to make your next keynote extremely engaging. All right, before I dive into the 3 things to create an engaging keynote, you gotta have a hook. You gotta have a way to bring them in. Every great concert you've ever been to, from Taylor Swift to Justin Timberlake to Garth Brooks, pick an artist, they have a hook, they have a beginning of their show, they have a countdown, they have something that's gonna bring you in. My greatest hook that I give is either a quote or a story or some sort of environmental change, whether that's the lights or a sound effect or something to bring the audience in to say, ooh, there's a cliffhanger. I want to hear more. Some of the greatest keynotes I've heard, actually one of my favorite, was a gentleman got out on stage, he crossed his arms and didn't speak for 32 minutes of his 45-minute talk. He simply stood there and he looked at the audience for 32 minutes. Now that sounds a little crazy, but I was hooked. I was like, and you couldn't speed up the video. I actually was watching it online. I couldn't speed up the video. I wanted to, but they had a little disclaimer at the bottom, you cannot speed up this video. So I sat there for 32 minutes and watched him stare at the audience. And slowly but surely, everybody stood up and they walked up on stage with him and they kind of stood behind him. And he talked about the power of silence. He talked about the power of being still. He talked about the power of the moment of just being fully who you are and not have to say too many words. And I was like, goodness. To a person that gets paid for saying words a lot, I probably should be more silent. That was a great hook for me. So what could your hook be for your talk? How could you bring people into your topic? How could you bring people into what you're trying to say? So we got our hook down. We got the audience engaged. Now, number 1, have you thought through the lens of the audience? That's my first one. Have you got the audience in your vantage point? A friend of mine, a mentor, Anthony Trucks, talks about this idea of the 80-20 rule. He's got 80% of his content baked, and 20% he's going to morph based on the audience that he's speaking to. Now, for me, when I think about my audience, I'm asking who's in the room. If I'm able to, I love when an event planner will send me who is actually in the room. I will look every single one of them up on LinkedIn. I'll learn about them. I'll discover stories. And when I see something awesome they've done, I even mention them on my talk sometimes. You watch the room go, wait, what? How did you even know? Now, don't make it creepy or make it weird, right? But there's things you can highlight in the room about the folks that are there. If you're thinking for your audience, it is absolutely remarkable. Now, you can think about content that might be helpful for them or connects to their day-to-day life. There's an event that I spoke at recently where the entire department that I spoke to had just got demoted, changed, like it was not a good vibe coming into the room. And I had to pause for a second and say, how do I connect with them? So I started with a story of when I got injured. I got a story of when I was playing baseball at a D1 school at Auburn University and I was injured before I even stepped on the field and how I dealt with adversity when there was change. I had to, in the moment, think about how could I think through the lens of the audience. That's number 1. Oh yeah, baby. Number 2, you already know by watching this video, and if you've been around these parts for a minute, you know that number 2 is my favorite, is create these engaging moments. I don't know what I would do in my life without engaging moments, particularly at events. It's funny, when we sit down as a team, we think through start to end of an event, and we ask ourselves, what are the moments of engagement throughout the event? Because every single client, I would say this without fail, the part that they comment on most is not how great we were as hosting an event or speaking on a stage or things that happened up there. They comment about their people being, you guessed it, engaged. Well, nobody's gotten engaged at an event, but they stay engaged with the content because there's things that they can actually do. There's ways for them to stand up, to laugh a little bit, to have some moments of levity, to think through, man, maybe my life isn't that hard. Maybe I could lean in a little bit. Maybe my boss does care about me. Maybe I actually could create something that would add value to the earth. Maybe my calling is to be here for this moment, to dive in full speed. All those things are results of being engaging. Now you're in luck. Below we have a little engagement playbook, if you will. It's our Elevate Your Engagement playbook. I want you to download it. Go down, click it, give us your email. We're gonna send it to you. I want you to have it. Now, I want you to also be on our email list. We have a quarterly email that comes out that shares updates. Love for you to connect with that and be a part of what we're doing here at Elevate as well. So we are fired up about engagement. We are fired up about getting the audience connected to your content. And as a keynote speaker, you got to find a way to do that as well. Some folks push back and say, oh, that's cheesy, that's weird, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do a game. This is not a game. This is getting the minds and the hearts of the people that you're serving connected to what you're actually saying. And the times where I felt a little bit flop when I finished a keynote talk, when I've tried to be too serious, when I've tried to be too straight and narrow and say all the things you're supposed to say. Every time when I've left a talk and there was an appropriate amount of engagement that connected to the content, I left going, man, that was so much fun. I had a blast. The audience was there. Folks are coming up. They're asking, hey, could you come speak at this event? Could you come do this? It's without fail. And I don't know why we go back to making our events boring or making our keynote talks boring. Stop being boring. Make it engaging. All right, my final one, number 3 is practice, practice, practice. Not like Allen Iverson said back in the day, practice. We talking about practice? Yes. Take your actual computer, plug it into an actual screen, and practice your actual content in front of an actual audience if you're able to. Now, I have a gentleman that I'm coaching right now. He's got an event coming up here in just a few weeks, and I had a phone call with him just yesterday, and he said, Billy, can I come to your office, plug in my computer, put my slides up on the screen, and talk through what I'm going to talk to, and have you and your team walk through things that I'm going to say? I said, man, that would be a joy for me, please. We all get on site and we plug it in and we're worried about the technology, and then we're like, oh, we haven't actually practiced this. There is a unique joy that happens, and there's a connection with the audience you can have when you've actually practiced beforehand. I can tell you the times, and I'm a very non-scripted person. Even creating this video, I have an incredible team that gives me bullet points, it gives me ideas, but I just sort of run with it. I like feeling my way through. But I know that when I can have something beforehand, like we did for this video, and I can read through it and understand it and internalize it, it's just gonna make what's happening on the other end of the video or the audience that's in person feel so much more connected. So practice. That means like understand, are you gonna have a lavalier microphone like this one? Are you gonna have a handheld? Are you gonna have a card in your hand? Are you gonna be standing on a stage? Is there gonna be lighting? I've got lighting right here on this video. I've got to practice what it's like not to stare into the light. I've got to practice what it's like not to bounce around too much. I've got to understand the environment that I'm going to be in. So if you can recreate that as much as possible, when you get on that stage, you can kind of forget about those things and you can get into your actual meat of your content and be present with the audience. That is the value of practice. In the words of the famous Ron Washington, who is the head coach for the Anaheim Angels, used to be the third base coach for the Atlanta Braves, my favorite team, he would talk about every single day, we're gonna get out and we're gonna work like dogs. We're gonna get out in the field, we're gonna take ground balls. I mean, there's videos of him 5, 6, 7 hours before the game starts doing ground balls with his all-star infield. Literally the entire Atlanta Braves all-star infield was out there taking ground balls 5, 6, 7 hours before the game even started. So it's incredible. The greatest athletes talk about Kobe Bryant, talk about Michael Jordan, talk about Michael Phelps, talk about anyone you want to, even Caitlin Clark, watching her incredible run at Iowa basketball. There is practice that is made for athletes like that to do their thing. So I want to challenge you, whether you're an athlete or whether you're a speaker, you've got to go through, put yourself in the environment and make it happen. I hope you enjoyed this video. I get fired up about this topic because when I get the opportunity to stand on a stage, I realize I am there in an act of service. And when you're there in an act of service, your mindset shifts a little bit. Not trying to make yourself look great, but how could I add as much value as possible? Because this speaking game, it's emotional. But you can take those emotions out a little bit if you take these 3 points and you dive in and you leverage them. Let's have some fun. Thanks for joining us. Click below and get our Elevate Your Engagement playbook. I look forward to connecting with you real soon.